Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review one of the big films coming out for awards season, and it's Darkest Hour, starring Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. And first question is probably going to be from anybody: is Gary Oldman worthy of an Oscar for this? I thought he did a great job. It's a tough year. You got Daniel Day-Lewis. I haven't seen Phantom Thread yet, but it's Daniel Day-Lewis, so he's probably the front runner anyway. But the rest of the film, does it catch up? I think it does a decent job of living up to the performance that this film's built around. Joe Wright does a really good job of telling this story. I'll talk about the actual story in a minute, but I feel like he gives it enough energy and enough style to keep this film moving and not feeling like it's really bland, just like, let's go to the next scene of people sitting in a room talking with each other. And in terms of the pacing of this film, I'm going to say it drags at moments, and it's not necessarily on the director, but I feel like the story drags, and it's just like, it could have been trimmed. It could have, but he gives enough energy that it keeps going, and the scenes are interesting enough for you to pay attention, but it's like, why are they there? And in terms of the actual tone of this film, it is a serious film. It's a drama, but there are some nice comedic moments and some heartfelt moments that I really liked. And in terms of did this emotionally hit me, there are moments where I really felt the emotion. And there's one particular scene in a subway which I believe is considered by most the most controversial scene in this film, because a lot of people think it's overly melodramatic and out of place. Some people think it's the best scene in the film. I actually honestly lean more towards the best scene in the film, for me personally, because I really felt like it showed a whole different side of Winston Churchill and really gives some perspective on this whole environment. And the cinematography was done by Bruno Delbano, and this film is beautifully shot. The lighting is beautiful. There's just the use of shadows and like strains of light are so well done in this film. I really appreciated that, and what Delbano is able to do with the camera work and the framing and long shots. This is very much a Joe Wright film. You can tell there's a lot of tracking shots. There's a lot of long takes. There's a lot of cool uses of the camera, like following characters and different stuff like that. From a technical standpoint, this is a gorgeous film and really awesome film, well put together. The writer was Anthony McCartan, and I'm going to say from a story perspective, it's a very interesting story. There's a lot of very interesting scenes. I do think they could have trimmed out some. They felt a little redundant and repetitive after a while, and this film probably could have been a little under 2 hours instead of like slightly past the 2 hour mark, because some of the scenes didn't need to be there. There's some very interesting characters in this film. Some of them don't get as fleshed out as they could have, but they're still interesting enough. Obviously, Winston Churchill's the figure piece of this film, and he's a super interesting character, but you get Halifax and Neville Chamberlain, you get King George, you get Winston Churchill's wife. Now, probably the least interesting character is Lily James's character, who is basically our conduit, the audience's conduit to the story. And she has some development in the film, but honestly, she's pretty bland. But Lily James is so charming that it works, but she could have been fleshed out a little bit more. But the thing is, like, she's basically, why would we know about this? Because she's there and she lends, like, the normal person's perspective on all of these events. Now, the dialogue is sharp and biting, and there's some great lines throughout this film and very powerful speeches, and I think that is very well done. And the themes of this film, there's some very tough decisions that Winston Churchill had to make throughout his time as Prime Minister, and this film really captures all of that in the story, and very impactful. Now, the music's done by Dario Marianelli, and the music in this is beautiful. This is an amazing score. I wouldn't be surprised if it's up there for nominations, because honestly, Marianelli does such an amazing job bringing a beautiful score that matches the intensity of a lot of these dramatic moments and really elevates a lot of those scenes. And then the acting, Gary Oldman is amazing in this film, between the makeup and his performance and what he's supposed to be doing as Winston Churchill. And he balances the gruffness, and there's real human emotion and fear going on in this character, and I really appreciated that in this film. You have Kristen Scott Thomas, who plays his wife. She was great in her small moments. Ben Mendelsohn as King George was fantastic, and honestly some of the best moments in this film are his scenes with Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. And I would have loved to see more scenes of just the two of them, because there was so much chemistry and it was a very powerful performance. And then Ronald Pickham and Stephen Delane, who play Halifax and Neville Chamberlain in this film, do really good jobs in terms of taking these supporting roles and really doing something with them, and because they're important parts to this drama and this story, and they really bring their A game in those scenes. And Lily James doesn't have much to work with, so she doesn't get to stand out a whole lot, but she is charming enough to warrant being on screen, and she was a good bit of casting for that character, how it was written. Now, this film's a bit flabby, but it's a very artistic take on a historical character drama that's really anchored by a very powerful and driving performance by Gary Oldman. I'm going to give Darkest Hour a B+.